Hello, welcome back to Pursuing God's Heart Yourself in the book of Jonah. And we come now to part 4 in this series. We're working our way through 7 principles that are useful wherever you are in the Bible. And I just encourage you to kind of get used to these principles and start applying them in your own Bible reading. One way to do that is to take each one in turn. After you watch this video, read through the whole book of Jonah with that principle in mind. So, what does this say about God, or what is the author trying to get across? In this case, we're coming to principle number 4, which is context. Every detail makes sense in context. Now, there are 2 contexts. There's the historical context, what was happening at the time, and there's the written context, what is going on around the passage you're looking at. Here we are in the beginning of chapter 3. And the word of the Lord came to Jonah the second time. Okay, it's kind of hearkening back to chapter 1 the first time. And we've got the same commands again. Arise, go to Nineveh, call out against it the message that I tell you. We've got that 1, 2, 3 instructions, just like there was back in chapter 1. Now, verse 3 tells us that Jonah arose and he went to Nineveh, according to the word of the Lord. There's the 1, there's the 2. And it's done according to the word of the Lord. This is a good point to just pause for a second and say, okay, what's going on in terms of context? In terms of the historical context, it would be worth looking up the Assyrians and Nineveh in particular, but just the Assyrian nation, the empire. They were absolutely horrific. I mean, they were some of the most terrorizing armies of all human history. The things that they would do to their enemies don't bear repeating. You feel free to look it up, read about them, and be horrified by what you discover. The way they would literally rain terror on their foes was horrific. So they were really the sort of religious terrorists of their day, and incredibly powerful with it. Maybe that context helps us to recognize something of the tension that Jonah felt. Why was it that in the first place he didn't just do what God told him? Why did he run away? Why do we have Jonah 1 and 2? Maybe the historical context helps us to make sense of that. But then keep in mind we've got the written context of Jonah 1 and 2 to help us make sense of what's happening here at the start of chapter 3. So the word of the Lord came to Jonah, again, second time. We've got the 3 instructions. We've got the first 2 being obeyed according to the word of the Lord. 2 out of 3. That ain't bad. But then what about the third one? The third one is that he's supposed to preach the message that God gives him to Nineveh. What does it tell us here? Verse 3.5, right? Now Nineveh was an exceedingly great city, 3 days' journey in breadth. Historical context, Nineveh wasn't that massive. It wasn't the size of London or something, but maybe the complex of cities that made up kind of the greater Nineveh kind of area was much bigger. Or maybe just going all the way around it to do it full justice would take 3 days' journey. Whatever the reality was, the writer is trying to get us to see this was a 3-day job, right? A 3-day journey. Jonah began to go into the city, going a day's journey. So there's the 3 days, he's gone a day. And he calls out, and now here's the message: yet 40 days and Nineveh shall be overthrown. That raises a question. Jonah is the expert at raising questions for us, or maybe the way it was written is intended to do that. What's going on? This is not a normal message. This isn't like a lot of the time when the prophets go with a message to a nation or to a city or to some people that God is bringing a message or a burden against. Typically there's a sense of warning. You have been evil. If you do not change your ways, this is what's going to happen to you. Jonah doesn't give any ifs. He doesn't give any hope. He just says 40 days and Nineveh shall be overthrown. The context may be helpful for us here. Do we want to give Jonah the benefit of the doubt? Sometime we should do a video about how we automatically give Bible characters the benefit of the doubt when maybe we shouldn't, when maybe the text is giving us all the clues necessary to hold back from benefit of doubt giving to these people. Jonah, so far in the book of Jonah, has not colored himself with the colors of glorious obedience. Chapter 1, he ran from the Lord, obeying only one of the 3 commands. He went down to Joppa, got on a ship to go to Tarshish, down, away from the presence of the Lord. Everything about chapter 1 is kind of weird. He goes and sleeps. They're trying to survive this storm. He doesn't, even when he's woken up, he doesn't explain what's going on. They have to cast lots. The lot falls on him. He says, I fear the Lord. But everything in that chapter says, well, kind of they do more than you do, Jonah. And then he doesn't say, give me a moment, let me repent, let me ask God to forgive me, and that will stop the storm. He just says, throw me into the sea. I'd rather die than obey. It's kind of a bizarre chapter. God is merciful to the sailors, first of all with the calm, and then to Jonah with the great fish. And then we're told in chapter 2, after 3 days and 3 nights in the fish, it says, then he prayed. I don't know if he took that long to start praying or not, but that's kind of the way it reads. And then his prayer is a little bit strange. So everything in the 2 chapters before this, in the context, are saying something's not right with Jonah. And so now when we come to this, the internal details of these first few verses say what? Well, you've got this according to the word of the Lord. Yes, stamp of approval on the 1 and the 2 bits of obedience. But what about the 3rd? Well, the clue that we have here is the 3 days and the 1 day, which maybe just create that sense of something isn't quite right. And then Jonah's message, 40 days and Nineveh shall be overthrown. Maybe we'll come back and notice a detail there at some point as well. But there's something that doesn't feel right, and the context is helping us to understand and to feel what is happening in the book as we're reading it. And so please keep reading Jonah. Maybe read through the whole thing and ask yourself, okay, what is going on in the context historically? Read it through and say, okay, how do these parts of the story relate to each other? The context will always help us to understand what is intended, what is to be understood in terms of any detail or any aspect of a book of the Bible that we're reading. So there's the book of Jonah, principle number 4. Join us again next time for the next principle. Thank you.